Hi, welcome. My name is Mahmoud, a no-code expert. I specialize in helping businesses simplify operation and automate workflow using Airtable. So in this video, I'd like to walk you through how I built a transaction coordinator system using Airtable, a setup that gives you a structure, clarity, and automation. So whether you're a transaction coordinator, a real estate agent, or working in property management, this system can help you streamline your entire workflow from managing client properties to tracking taxes and deadline. So inside this system, I have built different tables and each one serve for a clear purpose to keep the transaction process organized. So one of the table I created is the transaction table. I also have the tax table, the client table, the agents table, the vendors table, and the team member table. So each table have their own purposes and just to make things organized. And here I have the transaction table. You can see I'm on the transaction table, which stores the information of the transaction, like the transaction ID, the property address, the client's name, the transaction type, the statuses, the closing date, the contract view date, the tax, the assigned agent. So these table are being linked from another table. This is the tax table, which is linked to the transaction table, which I'll be walking you through how everything is linked and why it is linked. So this transaction table, I have different view for it, like the file management view, which shows the images of each file, like each transaction file and their informations. You can see these are the file that will be displayed here. This does not have an images. So for instance, if you have an image of a transaction, it's going to be shown here and their information. And here I have a submit new transaction. So this submit new transaction is just a form that an agent can submit the transaction or a transaction coordinator can submit the transaction and it's going to be stored on the transaction table. So this is the form. I have the transaction ID, the property address, the client name, the transaction type, the closing date, the notes, the file you can see, and here I have the tax table. So the tax table also has its own function. Manage every tax related to the transaction, like the transaction due dates, the assigned team member, and the progress tracking, like the progress tracking of the transaction. So here I have the transaction name, the tax name. You can see this is the tax name, the transaction each tax have been linked assigned to. So this transaction receive signed contract is assigned to the transaction, the first transaction. So everything has their own transaction they are being linked to. So the status of the transaction, which is from the transaction table, the due date of the tax, the completed. So whenever it is marked, it means it is completed. So here the assigned member, the assigned transaction, the transaction coordinator, the team member, the email of the team member, the stages, the priorities, the statuses, and the assigned user, which is also the team member. So here I have the client table, which stores the informations of the client. So in the tax table also, sorry, I have different view. So which like the tax for statuses, so it's categorized each tax for their statuses, like the to-do tax, the in progress tax, and the completed tax. You can see it makes everything even more organized. The tax deadline. So this is a calendar that shows the tax deadline, like the date of each tax that and their deadline. So this is the tax it received signed contract, the due date 22/5/2025, and this is even due already. And this is the client table, which I said earlier. This shows the information of the client, their email, their phone number, the client's type, whether it's a buyer or a seller, the preferred contact method, whether it's an email, phone number, the notes, and the transaction each client has been assigned to. Here I have the buyers. So this is a filter which filter each client that are buyer. So filter client type. So this it only shows the clients that are buyer here, and here it shows only the clients that are seller. You can see each client here are sellers, and this is the agents table. So the agents can submit each transaction. So it stores the information of the agent's name, the email, the phone number, their brokerage, their commission splits, the notes, and the transaction they are also being assigned to whether the transaction they submitted. So this is the vendors table. The vendors table store home, inspector, the Anthony's, the the company names and the company title and the third party vendor they work with. So like the third party then vendor, the transaction coordinator work with. So like these are the information of the vendor name, the type, the contacted person, the phone number, the email, the transaction they are also being assigned to. And then I have the team member table, which are also the transaction coordinator. So this table store the information of the team member, like the name, the email addresses, the phone number, the tasks that are being assigned to. So each team member are the one handling each task. So these are the tasks that are being assigned to. Olivia James is assigned to this task, receive signed contract. So he's the one handling this transaction, these tasks, and these are the transactions here that are assigned to the due date of the task. And I'll be walking into the next step, which is the automation, which makes everything even more simple and reduce manual work. And here, this is the first automation: auto update transaction status to on transaction completion. So whenever a so it automates transaction status on transaction completion. So this is here. In the agent table, when record is created in the agent table, it should send email to the agent like, thanks for joining us. You can now submit. Oh, sorry, this is I'm not clicking on this because I was even confused at first. So when record matches condition, update status. So this is the I clicked on the wrong one at first. So if the record is if a transaction is being completed, you should update a record in the tax table. So whenever the transaction in the if whenever a transaction is being checked, is being marked as checked, is going to update the status in the tax table as completed. You can see. And the second automation here is tax due reminder. So whenever a tax is going to be due by tomorrow, you need to send an email to the transaction coordinator like that your tax is going to be due tomorrow. So he or she should be able to handle the tax perfectly. So this is the message. This is the client, the transaction coordinator name. Just a friendly reminder that the tax is due tomorrow. Please make sure it's so he send a reminder to them for them to handle their tax. And here, welcome an agent. So whenever a new agent is added, so it's going to send an email notification to the agent like, thanks for joining us. You can now submit a new transaction using this link below. So this is the link of the form because each form on a table can be copied. So the next part here is the interface. So with the interface, it shows the overview of all the transaction and makes it even more easier and more organized to see every transaction. And each team member can log in to this interface to view their own assigned tasks. So this can be done on their phone also. So let me open the interface. So the interface, this is the interface which shows the total transactions. These are the total transactions which are 20. Transaction closing this week. The transaction that I'll be closing this week is zero. The transaction duties. So these are the transaction duties. The table it shows it here and you can filter it. So maybe if transaction is under contract, you can filter only transactions that are under contract. So you can see, and here I have the tax workflow. So this just categorize everything like the tax, the transaction status, like the to do, the in progress, and so if they want to add a new tax, they can add a new tax. When they click on this, they're going to show them, take them to a form where they can add a new task. You can see I clicked on it and it took me to a form, so it's still loading. So let me go back to the interface. Sorry, so it's loading. So this is it, and this next page here is the transaction details. So it lists each transaction, and you can tap on the transaction name, and it's going to show their details. You can see it's showing each transaction details. It's showing their details. They have different duties and the tax manager. So it shows when you tap on each tax, it will show their duties here. So this is the workspace of the of the transaction coordinator. So this workspace, each transaction coordinator can log in and view their own transaction. You can see they can view their assigned taxes, the taxes that will be overdue, the overdue taxes, the upcoming taxes, and the completed taxes. So this is it here. Let me open it here. So this is it. You can see all assigned taxes. So this is a transaction coordinator here. So this is all his assigned taxes, the overdue taxes. So you want to show the overdue tax. You only have one overdue tax. The upcoming taxes, you only have two upcoming taxes, and the completed taxes, you only have one completed tax. So the transaction coordinator, each transaction coordinator can log in and view their own taxes. So it serves as a portal. So this is how I built a transaction coordinator system using Airtable, which makes things even work more easier. And instead of you working with different type of spreadsheets, notes, Airtable makes it more easier. So if you want like an exact template of this transaction coordinator system I built, you can tap on the link in the description and get it on Gumroad, or if you prefer a custom version built specifically for your own business need, like if you want to build it for your own business needs, you want to design it for your own business needs to your own need, you can kindly comment in this, you can kindly comment in the section like that you need something similar to this. So